Hello friend! In this video I want to share with you 10 things that I think would have been really nice to know when I was a beginner learning how to hand letter. I've said it before, but there are definitely some things I've learned the hard way, and I have no regrets because if I didn't, I might not have thought to share them with you. But regardless, these 10 things are things that I think would have either saved me time or helped me not be so frustrated when I was a beginner learning how to hand letter, so I'm going to share those with you today. I hope that some of these tips will help you to grow in your lettering skills, so let's get right into the 10 things that would have been really nice to know as a beginner learning how to hand letter. The first thing that would have been really nice to know as a beginner was the difference between upstrokes and downstrokes and which ones were supposed to be thick and which ones were supposed to be thin. When I first started lettering, I started with faux calligraphy, which is where you write your letters and then you draw in your thicker strokes after. But the problem is I wasn't sure which ones to thicken and which ones not to thicken. I would just kind of guess and experiment and try to make it look good, but there's actually a much simpler formula than that. To put it simply, when you draw down on the paper where the pen is coming towards your body, that's a downstroke. And when the pen is going up on the paper or away from your body, that's an upstroke. One way to figure this out is by drawing your letters and then going back and adding arrows just to show which direction that you drew in. You can do this all around the whole letter just so you have a really good visual. You can kind of see how I've done this here in my Simplified Lettering Beginner Bundle. That just kind of takes the guesswork out of it for you and helps you to figure out where to go with your pen. So the downstrokes, which are the places where the arrow is going down, are going to be thick. And the upstrokes, which is where the arrow is going back up, are the ones that are going to be thin. Whether you're using a brush pen to achieve this look or faux calligraphy, the rules are still the same, and it's much more simple than the trial and error that I was doing when I was a beginner. If you don't have the Simplified Lettering Beginner Bundle and you'd like to check it out, I will leave a discount code in the description box below for 20% off of your purchase and a link for you to grab them. So the second thing is something that I think every beginner needs to know, and that is that it's not necessary to know cursive to do hand lettering, but I think it can help. I get comments and questions sometimes from people who seem to either think that cursive is the same thing as hand lettering or that you have to know cursive in order to do hand lettering, but that's not necessarily the case. I personally call my own style more of a script style, not traditional cursive, because I don't follow all of the rules of cursive. So yes, a lot of my letters are connected and they kind of give a cursive-like feel, but oftentimes they're not. Sometimes I don't like the way two letters go together and I will just leave them separated, or I will use a print letter mixed in with my script style. And that's one of the things that makes cursive and hand lettering different. Another thing that's different that you can see in my example is that on the top, or the cursive line, I didn't lift up my pen the entire line, except for to add dots and crossbars. And that meant that I backtracked on strokes sometimes. But with hand lettering, I lift up my pen after almost every single stroke. When it comes to hand lettering, I believe that you don't have to follow a specific set of rules or exact way of writing a specific letter. You can change it up depending on what your style is. Now, that being said, I do think that cursive can help you to solidify your letter formation before jumping into worrying about thick and thin strokes. So let me add a little bonus tip here. I think that people underestimate the importance of letter formation, but in my opinion, having good letter formation be kind of a second nature to you is really important for learning brush lettering. Because the thing is, adding thick strokes to our letters and using a brush pen can kind of feel unnatural at first. If we're trying to learn thick and thin strokes while we're also trying to learn how to use a new pen, while we're also trying to master a script alphabet, it can feel a little bit like learning a bunch of new things all at the same time. And that's hard. That can feel overwhelming and make it difficult to focus on what we're doing, since we aren't struggling with just one thing, but multiple. I really think that having a solid script alphabet is underrated, and I think it's a great idea to develop one before jumping into lettering using a brush pen. The Eloise is my monoline script alphabet, and if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of pages included, and I know that practice and repetition isn't like a super fun answer. I know that you would all probably prefer a video of 3 tips to letter without practicing or something like that, but I just don't have that. My style came with tons of practice, and that's why I include so many practice sheets. I'll talk more about practice later, but if you have not solidified your monoline script alphabet, I will leave a link below for the Eloise in case you're interested. Just check the description box below for a code and a link. The third thing that would have been really nice to know when I was beginning to learn how to hand letter is that you don't need a fancy angled grid to learn hand lettering. Earlier on in my brush lettering journey, I started to look online to find any hand lettering tutorials. Honestly, there wasn't much there because it was a little bit before online video tutorials got really popular, and it was also kind of before hand lettering started to get popular. So the videos that I did find were creating these elaborate grids or guides using a ruler, and it just looked super difficult to me as a beginner. Sometimes when I get overwhelmed with things as a beginner, I just simply don't start. And while there's certainly nothing wrong with exact angles in your hand lettering, if you're like me and that overwhelms you, I just want you to know that it's okay. You can start learning hand lettering without that. Now, if you're looking for perfect angles, maybe that's something you're interested in. But for me, I honestly don't think I even attempted to create that because it looked kind of overwhelming. And in turn, I just ended up lettering freehand on paper. But if you've ever tried hand lettering on just a blank piece of paper, it can be really hard to draw straight and not go up at an angle. So there's an in-between. It's not bad to letter freehand, but it would have been nice to have a really simple guide to help me keep things even and keep my proportions right. You can use a grid paper to help you letter, but if you don't want to purchase anything like that, I will just upload a few of my favorite blank lined pages to the free resource library on my website. The lines with the dashes are my preference because then I can use them with my favorite paper instead of spending money on buying a fancier paper. I also have a really upright writing style, so this just works really well for me. The resource library is totally free. Just look under the hand lettering section once you're in the library for the grids. And there are some other hand lettering printables there as well if you're interested. You can find that at howtohandletter.com/resource library, or again, I will link it below. It's somewhat new, so I'm still adding things to it, but you can definitely keep checking back for more free printables to help you with your hand lettering. The fourth thing that would have been really nice to know as a beginner is that tracing really can help. When I first opened my Etsy shop, there weren't a lot of options for hand lettering worksheets, so that's not really the way that I learned. I had developed a style just over a lot of practice and changing things up, and you can still see that in my earlier videos on this channel. But then something happened. I created a simplified style of alphabet, and I was really intentional about trying to make it specifically beginner friendly. Now, I wasn't a beginner at the time, but when I created the worksheet set, my own lettering style changed big time. It became more upright, more even, more simplistic, and I loved it. And I realized that because I hand draw my worksheets, I kind of naturally ended up tracing over my own lettering a lot. And I will leave a link for some old videos if you want to see what my lettering looked like before I created this set and after. But I almost feel like I'm a product of my own product, and that's what really makes me feel like this would have saved me a lot of time if I knew this earlier. I just think the repetition of creating the same strokes and letters over and over and over built muscle memory, and to me, it kind of now just feels like second nature. The fourth thing that would have been really nice to know as a beginner, and that I'm also kind of afraid to say, is that pens are not that big of a deal. So, okay, if you've been around here for any amount of time, you have probably gotten a feel for the fact that I have a lot of pens. But here's the thing. Before I started this channel, I only had a few. I buy a lot of pens in hopes that I can help you guys figure out what works for you and equally what won't work for you so you can save your money. But the reality is that for practicing your hand lettering, there are so many brush pen options, but so many of them look really similar. Yes, it's fun to have a bit of a variety, but I don't think you need that to learn hand lettering. Now, yes, it's true there are differences. Some are big, some are small, some are more vibrant, some have different color options, some are available in certain locations and not in others. But when it comes to actual brush pens that function and work well, and by that I mean they don't just get smashed when you push down on them, because those don't work and those are different. But for brush pens that work, you really don't need a ton of different options to practice and learn hand lettering. Now in this clip, you can see multiple different brush pens. All of them I use, all of them I love, but they really do create a similar style and look of lettering. I'm not even sure that many people could pick out which ones are which if they didn't see the part where I'm lettering with them. So yes, if you love pens, go for it. I am not here to judge anyone's love for pens. But my point in sharing this is to make it clear. If you think that spending more money on more expensive pens or different types of pens will equal you having better hand lettering, for the most part, I don't think that's true. It's about technique and it's about practice and just a little bit about your brush pen. Which leads me to number 6, which is actually kind of the flip side of number 5. While I may not think that your pen matters all that much, I do think that your paper does. I like a smooth paper. My personal go-to is HP Premium paper, and that's not because it's better than marker paper, but it is very smooth and also very inexpensive in comparison to many others. It's basically, I think, kind of a high-end printer paper, and I think it's a great introduction or go-to paper for brush lettering. But I also love marker paper. I'm using that a lot in this video. Here you can see a side-by-side between mixed media paper and a marker paper notebook that I have. While the look is a bit different, what really matters to me is the feel. The mixed media paper is textured and really can do a good bit of damage to those brush pens. The marker paper, however, feels amazing and is a joy to write on. That being said, there are lots of options, and when you get into more specific types of lettering, testing out some specialty papers may be something that you want to try. Here are a few that I have, and different ones are good for different things. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a comparison video between different papers. But if you're curious now, I do have a page on my website where I have some different tips and information about papers that I recommend. You can find that page at howtohandletter.com/paper. The 7th thing that I think beginners need to know is that lettering videos are often very sped up. Now, there are videos like this one where it's sped up by 8 times. And you might be thinking, well, that's really obvious. I can tell that it's sped up. But there are videos where lettering might be sped up only to 2 times or 4 times the speed. And sometimes those videos are a little harder to tell, and it can be easy to assume that they're in real time. Just for comparison's sake, here's a video of my lettering in real time versus the same clip sped up to 2 times. Is it obvious? I don't really think so. And now it's sped up to 4 times. This one might be a bit more obvious, but maybe not. And I would say for me personally, it's not uncommon for me to speed up my videos to at least 4 times when posting on Instagram, simply because Instagram has a 1-minute time limit, and it's hard for me to get out much more than a few letters in a minute when I'm writing in real time. So if you've been watching lettering videos and trying to create that lettering along with them, maybe see if slowing down will help. And if that feels hard for you, one way to try and slow down is to lift up your brush pen in between every stroke. Now, I do this pretty much naturally. You may not always notice because it's just a little pickup in between strokes, but in this clip I exaggerated this for you, and it's hopefully a bit more clear to you how often I pick up my pen. Doing this can help me slow down, to reset, and to make sure my strokes are evenly spaced. If you haven't tried it, I would recommend at least giving it a chance. The 8th thing that I think beginners should know is that you can always change your style. In fact, I probably always will. My style has changed multiple times even since starting this channel a few years ago, and that's okay. That's part of the fun of lettering. So if you feel like you're struggling with the basic strokes or getting things even, you're not alone. Just try to work on getting those basics down and trust the process, knowing that your lettering will probably change and that you have plenty of time to make tweaks to your style. I think there's always room to grow. The 9th thing that would have been really nice to know as a beginner is that you can make money from your hand lettering, and it's not just by selling art prints. When I first started to feel like I should share my lettering with more than just my notebook, I started selling things like art prints and hand-lettered goods, and don't get me wrong, that's great. And if you love that, that's amazing. But I didn't love it. I did love making the products, I loved creating the ideas, I loved coming up with new concepts, but all of the shipping and packaging and things that go with product-based business, it just didn't really work for me in my life. So why was I doing it? Well, I didn't really realize all of the ways that you could earn an income with hand lettering. I just saw a lot of people selling mugs and art prints, and I thought that must be how you make your money lettering, by selling mugs and art prints. But here's the thing. Now I do earn money through hand lettering, and it comes in several different forms, but none of those ways are selling art prints. If you're interested in learning more about making money through your hand lettering, I have a free training where I share my own personal story with you about the mistakes that I made when starting my business and how you can hopefully skip some of those mistakes. It's just a 4-video series. It won't take a ton of your time, and if you're interested, I will leave the link in the description box below. Or if you're ready to learn more about ways that you can earn money through hand lettering, I will link my business course called Your Unique Income in the description box below. It's only $27. I made it super affordable because it's specifically for beginners, and it's packed full of tips and ways to earn money in a way that works for you. I won't go on for too long, but you can go to bit.ly/youruniqueincome to see all of the modules that are included in this course and see if it's right for you. The last thing that I think every beginner should know is that no one can practice your lettering for you. Yes, I will try to create tons of resources for you and tutorials and share with you my tips and tricks and behind the scenes, but I simply can't practice for you. And for most of us, lettering takes practice. It's all part of the journey. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that this video was really helpful for you. Make sure to find me on Instagram at howtohandletter if you're not there already. And if you haven't already gone through my free 7-day hand lettering mini course, I would highly recommend jumping into that today. You can join for free at howtohandletter.com/mini course. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.